U.S. President Donald Trump marks 100 days in office, hailing his achievements despite polls pointing to dwindling support for his presidency. And for more analysis on Trump's first 100 days and how it's impacted Asia, we're joined by Drew Thompson, Senior Fellow at Rajaratnam School of International Studies at Nanyang Technological University. Mr. Thompson, thank you for joining us. Now, a signature policy of Trump's second term is his tariff war. I want to focus on the impact of this on Asia. What kind of deals are Asian countries seeking with the U.S.? Can we expect them to be mutually beneficial in equal measure?
So I think the important thing to remember is to step back and recognize that China is only one piece of the equation, and that Trump is really changing the U.S. economic relationship with the entire world. He's rejected the old order based on developing economies and developed economies, and he's establishing a new order based on reciprocity. And this is really very revolutionary, and it has really the objective of fixing imbalances that have been occurring over the last 40 years of globalization. And if you look at it from the U.S. perspective, the U.S. has $1 trillion annual trade deficit, almost $2 trillion government budget deficit every year, and $36 trillion in accumulated debt, which results in about $1.4 trillion in annual interest payments. And that's just not sustainable. The hollowing out of U.S. manufacturing industry, the lost jobs, particularly since China joined the WTO in 2001, is in the millions. So I think the gap between the rich and poor is widening in the United States, and that's just not sustainable. So President Trump faces some serious dilemmas. If he were to pursue the old strategy, he'd have to keep printing money. He'd have to keep running deficits, and there'd just be more and more very angry blue-collar workers. So he's chosen another way, and it's very disruptive, and it's really revolutionary, but it's not about Asia, and it's not just about China, but obviously China is part of that overall imbalance. And the problem is really that the U.S. produces too little and consumes too much. China, of course, produces too much and consumes too little. So if they can create more balance, if the U.S. can increase its manufacturing, if it can lower consumption, China can increase domestic consumption, lower its manufacturing, then the two sides could actually really do well. And what Trump has done with these tariffs is he's brought over 70 countries to the United States to start negotiating in good faith to lower market access barriers and lower tariffs. So he's disrupting the system. Doesn't feel rational, but he's trying to negotiate new trade agreements with the entire world, and it could result in a new economic order that's really based on free trade, low tariffs, and actual free trade that addresses these very systemic imbalances and ultimately will be more sustainable.
But while all these countries are trying to negotiate deals with the U.S., China doesn't seem to be playing the game. It's now in a sort of standoff with the U.S. because it's not in a hurry to negotiate. How do you see both sides backing away from this standoff?
Well, I think we're starting to see indications that there is willingness to find common ground. We're seeing both the U.S. and China issuing exemptions for critical imports. We've seen China starting to express a little bit of regret over some of the actions that they've taken, particularly towards American companies that have had their products blocked in China. So I think there's the potential for an opening, but unfortunately, what China would like to see is an overall better political environment to then engage in talks. But Trump is playing hardball, and he wants China to come to the table and negotiate in good faith and seek to lower tariffs on both sides. And I think ultimately it is in the interest of the U.S. and China to have a more equitable, reciprocal trade relationship. But it's going to require some painful reforms on China's side. They're going to have to reconsider some industrial policies and consider opening up to more American manufactured goods, not just raw materials and agricultural products. And I think if China's prepared to do that, then there's room.
Mr. Trump will be in the White House for another 4 years. What can governments in Asia do to better shield themselves from the vagaries of the White House?
Well, certainly Trump is a disruptor. And he came into office with a mandate for change. I mean, he ran on a platform of change. He ran on American public's dissatisfaction with previous governments, with globalization. So it's going to be very difficult for other countries to shield themselves. But I think what he's done is he set out an agenda that's genuine, that is going to recognize that the United States government is not going to tolerate such imbalances anymore. So rather than trying to protect the old order, which Trump is tearing down, it's incumbent on other countries to think about how they can compete on a more balanced playing field with the United States, take advantage of their own competitive advantages, and strike deals with the United States so that they can not protect their economies and their markets, but actually make them more efficient, make them more competitive, and embrace a more open and free trade regime that ultimately Trump, I think, wants as an end state. But to get there, he's got to bluster and he's got to threaten tariffs. So I think it's about changing the global paradigm and not just trying to preserve the old status quo, because it's not satisfactory to the United States anymore.
All right, thank you so much for your insights, Mr. Thompson. Drew Thompson there, Senior Fellow at Rajaratnam School of International Studies at Nanyang Technological University.